What is parasitic design? Josh, Strife, Hayes, this came out yesterday. Here we go. Ha ha ha.
What is parasitic design? You've probably heard the phrase before, either in relation to video games, collectible card games, or tabletop war games. Players will say this update is parasitic design, or that system or mechanic is parasitic, but what does it actually mean? How does it happen? How does it affect games once it's in them, and what can we do to prevent it happening more?
Yeah, this guy has good videos.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes. I love all types of games, from video games like MMORPGs to card games like Magic the Gathering, or tabletop battle games like Warhammer 40k, especially tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons. One of the things...
Does anyone else feel like you're in gaming purgatory, where no games are being created that make you happy or bring you joy, and furthermore, you're also bad at every video game you try, and you're in a spot where the only enjoyment you get is watching other people talk about video games, but you're too dissatisfied or just inept to actually play them yourself? What a crazy spot. What a crazy spot to be.
All these games have in common is they're rather complicated. They have an intense list of rules behind them, and they're all built up of various game design systems. Some of these games have core systems, things that are super fundamentally important to the game, the foundations the games are built from, inherent to the gameplay experience. The games also contain secondary systems, things that link to the core systems and enhance it, or have synergy with other secondary systems and allow complex interactions to happen within the game. Unfortunately, some of the games also have parasitic systems. These are ones that leech from the core mechanics and don't enhance them. They take from the game without giving anything specifically back.
Okay, you can stop beating around the bush, man. You're talking about retail WoW. We get it.
Let's have a discussion about what parasitic design systems are and why they are bad. Before we begin, consider dropping a like on the video or subbing to the channel. Ring the bell for all the future notifications. As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel going. More on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. To understand what parasitic design is, we first need to understand the more base and essential levels of design in a game, the core design. So let's take a look at one of my favourite MMOs and identify a few core design elements. This is old school RuneScape.
Dude, Josh Strife has 99 HP. Probably he has a fire cape too. Ooh, wow.
It's a third-person MMORPG where you...
He's got fucking third age also! Oh!
To move. Your character moves on a tiled grid, so movement on a tiled grid is a core system of this game. If you removed that, it would no longer be RuneScape. You can also carry 28 items in your inventory, equip items to specific parts of your body, and interact with the world by clicking on things. The combat system is based on in-game ticks of...
it's Armadillo. Yeah, that's what I said.
0.6 seconds, and attacks happen every few ticks based on your equipped weapon. All of these systems are core parts of the game. Remove them, and you fundamentally change what the game is. Core mechanics are the foundation your game is built upon. Change them, you change your entire game. A quick side note. Some of you may have noticed my old school RuneScape inventory was quite valuable. That's because YouTuber Callum Upton recently held a 24-hour Twitch stream where he raised money for charity. He streamed continuously for an entire day and raised over £2,500.
Oh my God.
He ended the Twitch stream with quite a risky gamble. He decided to duel me in old school RuneScape and risk his entire bank. This mug is to commemorate Callum doing that fantastic Twitch stream and raising £2,500 for charity. It is in no way to remind Callum that he lost 338,238,593 coins worth of value to me. Anyway, all games have their own core mechanics, and identifying them is usually a case of asking, what is the absolute base minimum I can take this game down to without changing the experience it's trying to give me? Once you've established the core mechanics of a game, you can begin to look at the synergistic mechanics, things that interact with the core systems and enhance them. Mechanics that directly affect or are affected by the core elements of your game. Let's look at RuneScape. Moving around the world is a core mechanic. Running increases your movement speed for a short while, but it drains and then recovers. The run mechanic has synergy with movement. It enhances it. Within RuneScape, you have the agility skill. The higher your agility, the more...
This is how RuneScape should work, okay? You make a new character. the only skill available to you is agility. You can't attack. You can't do any other skills. You can only do agility. And then once you get to 70 agility, then you unlock every other skill. You can't even get to level 2 attack or level 2 strength until you get to 70 agility, and then that unlocks everything else.
Shortcuts you can take in the game, saving traveling time.
Yes.
So the agility skill directly links to the movement mechanic. But your inventory core mechanic is engaged as well, because each item has weight, and the more you're carrying, the higher the chance you'll fail an agility obstacle. And the slower your run energy recharges. So the core mechanic of click a tile to move has several synergistic mechanics linked to it. Run energy moves you faster, the agility skill opens up shortcuts and recharges your run energy, and higher carried item weight reduces your agility success and decreases your run energy. These systems all interact with each other and all relate back to the core mechanic of movement. And importantly, while these systems...
Do I still have my old RuneScape account? It got banned.
Could exist independently of other secondary systems and only interact with the core mechanic of movement. They have been actively designed to support the core mechanic and all other secondary mechanics that interact with it. They enhance more than just themselves and work with multiple in-game mechanics. This means it's synergistic, not parasitic. It's important to understand that just because a mechanic causes negative things to happen to you as a player in the game does not mean it's parasitic. An enemy hitting you and you losing health is not parasitic design. You running and losing run energy is not parasitic design. Parasitic design is when it doesn't have synergy with systems outside of itself. So let's have a look at what happens when design goes from synergistic to parasitic. One of the most important design aspects of synergistic design is being backwards compatible. If a new system is introduced into a game, it needs to interact with...
You know what's crazy is the fact that he sounds like a posh British guy makes all of this information he's saying so much more valid. Imagine if the guy who made this video was saying, "Yep, you have synergistic design, and that's synergistic with everything that's going on inside the game. And then you have the parasitic design, and what that does is it makes it bad." Like, it totally is true.
Older systems. It needs to relate to the core gameplay loop and core mechanics. It needs to exist within the already complex interaction matrix of the game systems. With parasitic design, the system often exists independently of other systems, yet requires support from other systems to survive. It leeches from the core mechanics of a game and yet doesn't actively...
Making a career out of an accent? Well, I mean, think of all of the top MMO channels, like MMO YouTubers, MMO streamers. How many of them are British? You have Josh, you have Kira, you have fucking Boe, you have... There's actually a lot of them. Who else? I'm sure there's more. Willie, you have fucking Willie, you have Preach, you have Total Biscuit. True! Bellular. This is not fair. This is actually not fucking fair. This is not fair at all. Heels versus babyface. True. Yes. True.
Give anything back to them. It detracts. It doesn't enhance. This is why we refer to it as a parasite. Some of the hallmarks of parasitic design are: it's often created later in a game's life and is not backward compatible with other, more established systems. It often requires inputs from other game mechanics or systems to survive, yet provides little value to those systems itself. It often exists within a vacuum of game design, either a different physical space within the game or a mini-game that's not related. Nothing related to the parasitic system is relevant outside of a very specific or specialized area or time frame. Or, and this is probably the most telling aspect of a parasitic system, it could be removed from the game and nothing would be affected. Let's look.
What is an example of a parasitic system? Let's use Classic WoW. What is a parasitic system in Classic WoW? There are systems in Classic WoW that I really, really dislike, but are they technically parasitic? For example, the PvP ranking system in Classic WoW where you have to farm 10 billion honor a week, right? That's a shit-ass, trash fucking system. But is it parasitic? No, because you get something for doing it, right? Respecking, I think respecking serves as a gold. Like, I think the point of respecking is to serve as a gold sink, right? To reduce inflation. You don't want, listen here, brother. You don't want to have inflation. You don't want that. I'm trying to think. I don't know.
Look at some examples. The term parasitic design, despite being a general descriptor of this style of design, was widely popularized by Magic the Gathering designer Mark Rosewater, where he uses it to describe the design of cards that cannot go into any deck without detracting from the deck, or requiring very specific cards.
Oh! Okay, so we're talking about Red Paladins. Red Paladins are parasitic design in Classic WoW, because you cannot put a Red Paladin in any dungeon group or any raid group and not have them detract from that group. That, we found our example. There it is.
In the deck to set up and work.
There it is.
In short, the card doesn't add to the core mechanics of Magic and doesn't interact with multiple systems. It only interacts and works when built around. The most popular example of this is the splice onto arcane mechanic, which requires you to be running arcane cards and does nothing.
Can I tell you something, dude? I always really liked Magic. Like, I would go randomly buy Magic cards and look at the art and read them, but I never had anyone to play them with. Like, I straight up have never really had friends. I've never had friends. So I would go buy them and just look at them and just, you know, collect them. Like, but I never really played Magic because I just didn't have anyone to play it with. I know. Maybe, hey, you know, maybe one day we'll play online. I know there's the online thing, right?
Without them.
Yeah, we can do that.
You could remove splice onto arcane from Magic, and very little about Magic would change. When an MMORPG releases an...
Listen, I never actually implemented it because, once again, I never had friends. This is going to sound really bad. I would duel myself. That I've never actually told anyone that, but I would make 2 decks and I would play against myself. I know that sounds fucking pathetic, but yeah, that's anyway, I made a really good Bog Brew Witch. I'm telling you, dude, I had the best Festering Newt, Bubbling Cauldron, Bog Brew Witch deck you've ever fucking seen. Holy shit, that deck rinsed the fuck out. Every time I dueled myself with that deck, I would win. I've never lost a duel against myself, ever. I always won, every single one.
An expansion, they often come bundled with parasitic design elements, because designing a parasitic system that the existing systems must warp and bend around to make work is actually much, much easier than designing an evergreen system that naturally integrates itself into the core gameplay of your game. Remember the Heart of Azeroth in...
I knew this shit was... I knew this was coming. Get Kathy to play? Okay, anyway. No. Kathy, at one point, said, and I quote, "Card games are cringe." End quote. So, I'm going to try to convince her more. It would be fun to do. It would be fun to do it, but I don't know. I don't know if she will.
World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth. It was a necklace item you equipped and then powered up. Suddenly, every dungeon was about collecting Azerite to power it up, unlocking new powers on it, and your Heart of Azeroth levels would provide new combat buffs or debuffs. Everything in the expansion was about the Heart of Azeroth. You literally got given it at the start, and everything was about making it more powerful. It was a new item that brought a new mechanic with it that the expansion was almost entirely built around.
Wow.
And then Shadowlands happened, and the Heart of Azeroth was forgotten. So for a brief time, World of Warcraft had a very specific item which required dungeons to be run, resources to be found, and time to be dedicated to leveling it up. And in exchange for all your effort focused on this singular time-gated mechanic, it would affect combat in a very minor way.
Well, they've done this for like 4 expansions in a row, right? They had legendary weapons and artifact power. Excuse me. They had Azerite necklace. And now they've had, what's in Shadowlands? In Shadowlands, they have, Wait, in Shadowlands, they don't have, Anima, right. Anima, I don't think, is as bad as the other, like, iterations of the borrowed-powered bullshit, though, right?
While you were wearing it, and then Shadowlands released, and the Heart of Azeroth was instantly forgotten about and no longer relevant.
Legendary Cloak. I really think it's maybe I'm the odd man out. I think having legendaries that everyone can get and work towards completely defeats the purpose of a legendary, because at that point, the legendary is no longer a cool bonus thing you can get sometimes. It becomes a mandatory requirement, right? It's like, oh, you're trying to join our guild? Well, you don't have your legendary cloak, so we don't want you on our raid roster, right? It's like, okay, well, this does not feel very legendary. It made it very hard to play alts too. Like if you re-rolled an alt and you spend 2 or 3 weeks leveling your alt and getting your gear, and you want to join like a heroic raiding guild, well, you don't have your cloak or your ring or whatever it is, and we don't want you on the roster, so get the fuck out of here, right?
And the Heart of Azeroth isn't
Not
even the
legendary,
first time
bro.
they've done this. World of Warcraft does this quite a lot. Every expansion they release, especially the recent ones, takes the core systems of the game and then adds in a bit of parasitic design that will be relevant for this system alone. Remember building your garrison in Warlords of Draenor, and then the garrison becoming irrelevant? Remember restoring your artifact weapon in Legion, and then the artifact weapon becoming irrelevant? And then filling up your Heart of Azeroth, and then that becoming irrelevant? It's basically par for the course right now.
You know what actually is irrelevant? Retail WoW.
Because developing new, core, integral systems is hard. Developing a parasitic system you can throw away at the end of 2 years and then just add another one on, that's easy. A parasitic design mechanic is an aspect of gameplay, a system, or an update that requires other already established systems to support it, often taking time and resources away from those core systems, but not actually ingratiating itself into any of them in any meaningful way. It is a sideshow for a few months. It is the next hot trend that will inevitably die. It's a designer saying, hey, wouldn't this be cool? And putting something into the game that needs the game to exist but doesn't actually ever become an important part of the game. I've been playing and really enjoying Warframe for a while now, since I made the worst MMO ever episode on it, actually, and as great as the core gameplay is, I'm starting to see these parasitic design systems.
That speaks volumes to where the MMO genre is right now. Hey, I made a video about how this is the worst MMO ever made, and I've been playing it full-time ever since. That is the state of MMOs.
Everywhere. New ideas have been added over time but never expanded upon. New systems half-built and then abandoned. Still there, but not contributing. One of the worst aspects of parasitic design is how designers will add in a parasitic system, players won't respond well to it, and then instead of removing it, they will just add in another. This is one of the major causes of feature creep. Incomplete, non-fleshed out, shallow systems that don't enhance the core game design being left in a game, and bloating out the in-game systems and confusing the hell.
False. You can still make Drenic invisibility and swiftness potions in your garrison.
There you go.
Totally worth it.
Garrison content is evergreen content. There you go. Ooh, fuck. Oh, I skipped. No. Where were we? Probably there. I don't know.
Others without giving back.
Probably
or
there.
It's one that must be specifically built around and support it, because without the additional support, it would not survive on its own merits.
We were past this. We were definitely... Actually, no, we weren't. No, we weren't.
This is why when Dungeoneering released originally in RuneScape, people called it parasitic, and I can understand that complaint. It existed separately from the...
I hated Dungeoneering. But the thing is, if you got your Dungeoneering to like fucking max level, you would get the Rapier, and it was the best item in the entire fucking game. But, oh, fuck, what a trash fucking skill this was.
the main landmass and required skills to be trained to be good at, but having a high Dungeoneering level didn't make you good at anything other than more Dungeoneering. This is why people said it shouldn't have been a skill, but a minigame. Skills in RuneScape all interact with each other. Minigames don't need to, they can exist on their own merits. Dungeoneering required support from every skill to exist, but didn't supply any other skill with support. It didn't enhance anything else.
RuneScape 3, this is actually footage from RuneScape in like 2011, maybe early 2012. Dungeoneering was prior to RuneScape 3. This is how RuneScape 2 looked for like a solid year or so, I think.
Side of itself. Now, however, it's been updated and become much less parasitic. There are resource dungeons around the world that require a Dungeoneering level to get into, but it has been woven into the main game design over time.
This is after EOC. Oh, you know what? No, you're actually right. Oh, I just saw that. Yeah, you're actually right. Well, anyway, Dungeoneering was prior to EOC.
It has gained its synergy slowly. The main reason parasitic design exists and will continue to exist is because once a designer has built the core systems of their game and worked out the intricate connection matrices between all of the secondary systems, they step back, look at their game as a whole, and then players say, add more.
It's amazing.
Add more game. And game designers think it would take a long time to add a new core system and work out a way that it affects all the other systems. But it would be quite easy to add a parasitic system I can just remove later. It's like building a pizza. You start off with a decent base, then you add the sauce, then you add the cheese, then you add the toppings. You step back and say, this is complete.
I love pizza.
If someone looks at you and says, hey, I've eaten all the pizza, make it different, you could go back and remake the base, remake the sauce, remake the cheese. But that would be complicated. What's easier is just adding more toppings without stopping to think,
true,
are these toppings actually making the pizza better?
Ooh.
Or am I just adding them because people demand I add something? It's highly likely that parasitic design will unfortunately continue, because designing a temporary system that is supported and propped up by your core game and can be removed at any time without actually affecting your core game is much easier than adding something new to your core game and enhancing every aspect of it. Parasitic design is lazy. It's designed to be temporary, and it's one of the fastest ways to annoy your player base when they realise, hang on, this system won't actually matter in a year.
You know what? I just had a moment of deep introspection. If there's parasitic game design, there's definitely parasitic streaming. It's lazy, it's short-lived, it's not going to last, it's watching other people's YouTube videos. Parasitic streaming is being a fucking React dandy.
Yeah. If you're designing a game, add your core systems, then add synergy, and leave the parasitic design on the drawing board where it belongs. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel alive. You can support from just £1 a month.
You guys can support right now with a
sub to this YouTube channel.